Hi guys, Pastor Roy back with this week's weekly teaching. So we're going to be looking at, we're continuing to look at the subject of hope as we move forward toward Christmas. So allow me to read Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. That reads, "Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, searching for truth is not a part-time job. It takes everything we have. It takes everything we can ever muster, all the strength, all the courage, everything within us. Because it's one thing to say we seek the truth. It's a completely different thing how we handle the truth when we find it. And that's what throws most people off. They're all about looking for the truth. They're seekers. They're trying to find themselves. And a lot of times they'll say something like that. They're looking to find themselves. But what do they do when they come face to face with who they really are? So let me ask you, who are you really? Are you ready for the truth? Or is that something you put out there, you project to the universe to make yourself feel better? I'm seeking the truth. I want to embrace it. Is that true? If it is, you'll keep an open mind. You'll hear me out. And you'll investigate what I say. Okay? But if you're not really seeking truth, if you don't really care about that, if you're just trying to placate yourself, trying to make yourself feel better about who you are, then you'll brush me off. You'll call me some Bible thumper. You'll maybe other names. That's fine. That's fine. It doesn't bother me because I never sought the truth. When I was a young man, I didn't seek the truth. I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. I knew what trajectory my life was on, and I was okay with it. I had made my plans. And they were my plans. But the Lord had something different in mind for my life. And I embrace that today. And all I'm willing to do, all I want to do is have an honest conversation. So, if you want to have an honest conversation, we can do that. But to seek the truth takes everything we have, because eventually we will come face to face with the truth of the universe, the truth of what this life means, the truth of what our place is here on earth. Are we just taking up space? Or is there a plan and a purpose behind what's going on? At some point, we will come face to face with who we are when there's no one around, nobody to impress, nobody to try to get something from. We'll come face to face with who we really are. What does that look like for you? I want us to look at the wise men for just a few moments. I believe we can learn a great deal from these men. The wise men that we see gathered around the manger, it's a very popular scene this time of the year. Some churches, some communities put on live nativities. They have live animals, live actors. That's wonderful. I enjoy that. I like it. I've taken part in those things myself over the years. But we're talking about the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that if we believe history, and contrary to popular belief, the Bible is history. We'll go into that at another time. But if we believe history, then we know that Caesar Augustus put forth this decree It's recorded in history that this happened. And so Joseph had to return to his hometown to take part in the census. He had to be accounted for. He was betrothed, he was espoused to Mary, and she was pregnant. Now, in the Jewish culture 2,000 years ago, a pregnant teenager who was not married was frowned upon. It wasn't looked at in the same way a pregnant teenager is looked at today. However, she was with Joseph, and perhaps they just allow everyone to believe what they believe, that they were already married, whatever. I don't know. The Bible's not clear about that. What I do know is that they traveled back to Bethlehem to take part in this census. They get to Bethlehem, and you have to imagine the town is overrun with people. There's people everywhere because they all had to come home. Everyone who had ever lived there and moved away had to return. And so the town is overrun. Joseph is desperately trying to find a place for his wife to lay down, to get comfortable. I believe that as they're looking for a place to put up for the night, she begins to go into labor. Joseph goes to the inn, and we know the story. The innkeeper says there's no room in the inn, right? You can't, I don't have a room for you. But what he does say is this. He says, I have a barn out back. Perhaps you can find room there. And so Joseph takes his wife, who is pregnant and in labor. She is birthing a baby in the moment, right? And he has to help her into the barn. A barn. Now listen, we're in East Tennessee. You know what a barn looks like. I know what a barn looks like. I've spent time in barns, right? He had to help her into the barn. Perhaps he even made a makeshift bed out of hay and a blanket. I don't know. I'm taking creative license, I guess, a little bit, but just trying to use logic and think as a man, as a husband and a father, what would I have done? Well, that's what I would have done. I would have tried to make her comfortable. Would have tried to prepare for what was coming, a child. So they're in the barn, right? And the animals are still in the barn. Joseph can't move them out. He can't get rid of them. They're the innkeeper's animals. He's just trying to find a place and peace with them. And so they carve out their little spot. And the Bible says that Mary gave birth to the baby, to Jesus, and she laid him in a manger. Now, that sounds beautiful, but in reality, it was a food trough. It was a food trough. She laid her newborn baby in a food trough. It was designed to hold food for animals. Moms, dads, think about that. She laid her newborn baby in a food trough. And we know the story, right? The angels appeared to the shepherds who were keeping watch over their flocks by night, according to the Bible. So we have, in this barn, we have this array of people and personalities. We have the baby, we have the mom, the dad, we have all those animals gathered around. There were probably a couple of shepherds who had sought out this baby, that the angels had appeared in the nighttime sky to tell them about his birth. It's only logical that they would have sought him out, as did the wise men. So those three men, the wise men, are the only ones in this picture that stand out. They to look at them, they don't belong there. We're talking about highly educated, very wealthy, influential, and intelligent men. Three of them. They brought gifts because the birth of the baby had been foretold, and they had been told where to go and to look for the star and to follow it, and they would find the babe. You see, those three men, the song says that they traveled a great distance. They traveled a long ways. What does that tell us? It tells us that these three wise men were willing to go to any length to find the truth. Are you willing to go to any length to find the truth? And when you find it, will you accept it? It's safe to assume that the wise men had traveled many miles from the Far East to the Middle East, and it cost a great deal of money, I'm sure. And it was all to find Jesus. What's it cost you to find Jesus? Jesus was born in Bethlehem. It's just 6 miles from Jerusalem. At the time of Jesus' birth, Jerusalem was the spiritual center of the world. All kinds of spiritual activity was taking place in Jerusalem. All of the major religious leaders of the world were there in Jerusalem, but none of them were seeking Jesus. The only ones who sought Jesus were the outcasts and the outsiders, the ones on the fringe of society, the ones who stood out. They didn't fit in. Those outcasts, the outsiders, the ones on the fringe, and these wise men, they were the ones that were seeking Jesus. King Herod missed the birth of Jesus. The business leaders in Bethlehem missed the birth of Jesus. And maybe you too, my friend, have missed the birth of Jesus. If you're not looking for him, if you're not seeking truth, you will miss him. But the wise men looked for him. They were willing to make this 4 to 5 month journey across the desert looking for a baby. They were serious about seeking God. They were serious about finding the truth, and they were willing to do whatever it took to find him. That's wise, and it's what we need to do as well. We can't let anything get in the way of our search for God. It's the most important achievement we will ever accomplish in our lives. Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is like a pearl that is so valuable we would sell everything we have just to get it. And it seems that the wise men from the East understood this long before Jesus ever spoke that parable. The wise men were willing to give up everything they had to worship Jesus. They were willing to give up the comforts of their homes. Think about this. We're talking about wealthy, intelligent, influential men in their own countries, leaders in their own countries, leaving the comfort of the palace, perhaps, to set out on this journey up to 5 months long, across the desert, across barren lands. They were willing to give it all up because they had the right motive. And that motive was to seek the truth. And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. They wanted to worship him in spirit and in truth. So I want to ask you, friend, has that touched you? Has that affected you? Just think about it. Let it sink in. Ponder on it if you need to. It's okay. The first time I was confronted with the truth, I didn't know what to do either. It's okay. He'll lead you. He'll guide you. Hey, listen, I hope this has helped you today. I hope it's been of a benefit. Have a great day. Be blessed and be a blessing.